Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The New World. And in today's video, we discuss the shocking news this week that the greatest head coach, most winningest head coach, and the head coach to start the greatest dynasty of all time, Bill Belichick, be snubbed out of being a first ballot Hall of Famer after it came out that he was 10 voters shy of the total 50 votes he needed. This, of course, shocked the football world as a coach who is first in Super Bowl wins, conference championship wins, and second in most wins of all time as a head coach with 333 wins. It came out that the 8-time Super Bowl winning head coach, 2 he won as a defensive coordinator with the Giants, had to be without coming in first ballot due to his scandals during his time with the Patriots. And if you're familiar with them, they are the Spygate scandal and Deflategate. It also came out that one voter who was a former GM of the Colts in the Peyton Manning era and during the Bills' Jim Carrey era where they lost 4 straight Super Bowls, in which he stated he was not a fan of the Spygate scandal, especially being an opponent in those years, even though he's a longtime friend with Patriots owner Robert Kraft and did not vote against Kraft, who was a finalist for the Hall of Fame this year. So, as you can see, this sparked a lot of debates in which we will now give our thoughts. But before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't, turn on those notifications to stay tuned for more content, and comment if you think it was rightfully so for the Pro Football Hall of Fame to make Bill Belichick wait a year. Bardo, what were your thoughts on Bill Belichick not being voted as a first ballot Hall of Fame head coach despite being touted as the greatest head coach of all time?
All right, so first time that I heard about this situation, I, of course, was shocked. Because Bill Belichick, first of all, I was kind of surprised that, he was up to be, as a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So when I heard that he wasn't, I was like, well, what is the current criteria right now for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the voting process? So I did some research, and I think over the course of the last few days, we've been getting more information on what the process is. And I think that there are some procedural issues that have to kind of be identified. I know that everybody's been really bombastic about their vitriol for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You got guys like Stephen A. Smith calling it the Pro Football Hall of Shame, which I understand, but we got to actually break down what the process is. So as Jay iterated, it's a 50-person selection committee that votes for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This includes media members as well as current Hall of Fame voters. Essentially, coaches traditionally waited 5 years after retirement before Hall of Fame considerations, but as of recent of 2025, coaches can now be eligible 1 year after retiring. So that I did not know. That's why Belichick is up so early within his process. In order to be inducted in the Hall of Fame, a candidate must receive at least 80% of the votes. And the voters, they can only choose a limited number of candidates. I think that there's typically 5 finalists. They can only choose 3 of them. So that means that you have, legendary figures that are going to be left off some of the ballots. Now, I think that this conversation is multifaceted from the standpoint of we don't know all the people that didn't vote for Bill Belichick, and we don't know the reasons why. We can only speculate. And I've heard a lot of different explanations as to why Belichick was probably not inducted in the Hall of Fame and some justification after why he is not. The only reason why I'm going to say that I don't necessarily feel that strongly about him not getting in is this reason and this reason only. Bill Belichick, sir, when you are involved in cheating allegations, even though you have paid the price for those cheating allegations, you open yourself up to whatever comes after that. So by him being involved with the Spygate and the Deflategate to a lesser degree, but mainly the Spygate, I really want to focus on the Spygate because the Deflategate situation has always been kind of confounding to me. I don't really understand it that much. I thought it was really some buffoonery shit and really was like a beef that Roger Goodell had with the Patriots and Tom Brady, but that's a subject for another day. But specifically with the Spygate, this is avid cheating that he got accused of and got caught doing multiple occasions. This is not just a one-time thing. He did it multiple times, apparently. So with that, is Bill Belichick a Hall of Fame first ballot worthy coach based on his credentials, based on what he has accomplished? Yes. But we have to also acknowledge that this is not a voting award that's conducted by AI. We have human intervention that is involved, and people are going to feel some type of way, especially if they have some ties to some organizations, some teams that win against Bill Belichick in playoff games. Because in the postseason, we all know this from watching playoff football. and football in general, these games can come down to 3 points, can come down to a play that makes a difference in a team winning over another team. So that's if you have any type of advantage, or what people would consider an advantage mentally, and just based on how the game plays out, people can think that that has some type of impact on the outcome of that game. And for Bill Belichick to be involved in something, that heinous, I cannot put it past voters to say, hey, you're not first ballot. Now, honestly, how I view things is, are you a Hall of Famer or not? Because if you're going to hold that against Bill Belichick, do you still think that he is a Hall of Famer with the cheating allegation taken into account? Because those same people, in my opinion, it's hypocritical for you to come back the next go round for his second time up and induct him. No, you got to stand on that shit. You either think that he's a Hall of Famer or you don't. You think that the cheating is enough to say that he's not in the Hall of Fame. So I don't think anybody with the brain can say that, even though I understand the reasoning for why people didn't induct him into the Hall of Fame based on that. Now, I do feel like the procedures for the Hall of Fame and just what identifies a Hall of Famer for pro football needs to be explained a little bit thoroughly to the voters, because they clearly don't really understand the process. I think, what's this old ass man's name? The 83-year-old man, Bill something, that came out and stated that he couldn't remember. Jalen, what's the name? I can't recall it right now.
If I'm sure, I believe it's Bill Polian. Bill Polian.
Bill Polian. Bill Polian, the old ass man that came out and stated that he couldn't remember or recall who he voted for. I looked up, I think he's like 83 years of age. So you don't, Pro Football Hall of Fame, niggas like that don't need to be voting anymore. I'm sorry. I think that what we need to do is we need to update the process, because there's just been too much conflict going on with the Pro Football Hall of Fame exclusively. We don't really have these issues with the Basketball Hall of Fame at all. The Baseball Hall of Fame, there has been some, issues of people not getting unanimous votes and all that extra stuff, but they have a structure as to what qualifies a Hall of Famer with baseball. Football, we got to tighten up, man. We got to tighten up. I think that, if you're 83 years of age, I don't think that you should be voting, man. I really don't think that you should be voting, because cognitively, are you aware? Do you have the mental acuity to be voting on who should be inducted in the Hall of Fame? You can't even remember who the fuck you voted for. I thought that was a bit ridiculous, and because it's one of two things. He either exposed himself for probably voting against Bill Belichick, or he really just doesn't remember. Either of those is equally as bad, and he shouldn't be voting at all. Yeah, man, that's kind of how I feel about the situation. I think that there needs to be some updates to the procedures. I think that, we may need to have some type of kind of like how niggas do with the senatorial process of just, every 4 to 5 years, we integrate newer voters. Also, I don't know if 50 voters is enough if you need to have 80% of the voters induct you. I look at a lot of other processes, and they have, hundreds of, maybe even 1,000 voters. I think we need at least 150 to 200, because essentially, if 10 people think that I should not be inducted in the Hall of Fame, I don't know if that is enough with all of this interpretation of who should be inducted into a Hall of Fame. I don't think that is enough. So I think that they need to make some updates to that process. And since it's Bill Belichick, I think that there is enough precedent for them to go ahead and make immediate action. Now, Bill Belichick, I don't think that there should be a recasting of the votes. I don't believe in that. They've made the decision that they made. They don't think that you're worthy of being a first ballot Hall of Famer. So we don't need to redo the voting. But 2026, I think there needs to be some updates to the structures of the rules, for sure. So to end the conversation, do I think that Bill Belichick is the first ballot Hall of Famer? Absolutely. But am I going to throw a hissy fit and be angry and outraged about it? No, not really, because when you are involved in cheating, your integrity is placed in question. And I don't know what these, voters are evaluating, but if we talk about integrity of the game, morality, that has to be taken into account somehow, despite all the accolades that you have. Because from a player perspective, I kind of look at it like this. If a player got in trouble for PEDs or steroids multiple times, I don't know if that person should be a Hall of Famer, because your integrity has to be taken into question. So that's where I feel like you leave it up in the air on if you are or not when you're involved in something that's that heinous. So That's really kind of my viewpoint on it. I think it's unfortunate, but I think that a lot of people that are not, that are, just have all of this animosity towards the voters, you got to have animosity towards the process and to the person.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely in agreement with Bardo to kind of piggyback off of, what he said with, the integrity. You look at the MLB, they kind of make it clear, like, if you're taking performance enhancing drugs, doing anything to basically diminish your playing career and attack your integrity, then it's going to count against you going into Hall of Fame. We see that with Barry Bonds, who's arguably the greatest baseball player of all time. He's still not in the Hall of Fame. Aaron Rodriguez as well. So, it definitely makes sense. Now in the NFL, they don't really make it clear, but, it's kind of up to the voters. Like if they feel like looking at Bill Belichick's situation, like he cheated for however many years. And even though, post Spygate, he still won multiple rings. They still felt like that was something to just kind of be a little punishment to make him just wait a year, which, I mean, it's understandable. Like, I get it. We know that he's still going to get in the Hall of Fame, just not making him be a first ballot. It was interesting to see at first when you were hearing like Bill Polian, or however you say his last name, hearing his thoughts or his comments as to why. That looked very personal, especially when he was on that Colts team for most of those years. That definitely looked very personal. I'm kind of in agreement with Bardo with getting either more voters or different voters the following year. I also saw that it was another one that was a Colts reporter. Now he did vote with Bill Belichick, and he also stated, like, I voted for Robert Kraft, so I didn't see no point in me, penalizing Bill Belichick, because if I was going to penalize Bill Belichick, I might as well penalize Robert Kraft. And, that's understandable, because if I look at, like, even if you look at Tom Brady, that's what I was thinking as well. Like, if you're penalizing, Bill Belichick for Deflategate, are you going to do that with the greatest quarterback of all time? Like, that's a question that needs to be asked. Now I look at like Sean Payton with Hitgate. He's probably more than likely going to have to wait a year as well when he's eligible to be in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. Like I said, I understand it. When you make a mistake or you do something like cheating, you're just going to have to accept a punishment for that. And in his case, Bill Belichick will just have to wait a year. And I mean, it's okay. Like, I definitely seen like, JJ Watt, he is voicing his opinion on it. He wasn't happy. We know Stephen A. Smith voiced his opinion on it. You kind of give ammunition for something like that, then you're going to have to expect some type of consequence. I mean, yeah, man, Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, most winningest coach of all time. I mean, I get it. It happened, but hey, man, when you do something bad, you're going to have to get punished for it.
Also, I will say this in the video. I know a lot of people are throwing out Tom Brady and what impact this will have on him when he is up for a Hall of Fame induction. Ladies and gentlemen, this shit has no impact on Tom Brady, in my opinion. If Tom Brady is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, then there is no such thing as a first ballot Hall of Famer, because he can't be blamed for Spygate. That has nothing to do with him. Deflategate is kind of dumb. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it's kind of dumb. If you want to get at me in the comment section, go ahead and we can make another detailed video about that situation and kind of how I feel about it. I won't get into that now. But Tom Brady is a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I think that typically, Jay, when somebody is up for induction, they have a presenter that'll basically provide a case as to why that person is a Hall of Famer. When Tom Brady comes up, whoever is his presenter, they only need to say 2 words. Tom Brady. And maybe 3. Tom fucking Brady. Because it should not be a conversation. It should be unanimous. So that's all I got to say about that, man, to wrap up the video. But the Bill Belichick component, I think it's a little bit more nasty. It's a little bit more hasty. As well as this whole new thing with the 1 year after like all of these new rule changes. I think it's all very, very fugazi and questionable. But that's all I got to say, man. You guys let us know in the comment section what you think about this Bill Belichick conversation. Do you think that he is a Hall of Fame first ballot or not? Do you think that the cheating or any type of morality should take into account when somebody is being evaluated for Hall of Fame induction? Let us know.